Picture this. You're standing in your mother's kitchen on Christmas Eve, wearing an apron, flour on your hands, while 25 guests laugh in the living room. Your mother walks in, looks at the empty stove, and smirks. It's only 25 people. Why haven't you started cooking? That was me on December 23rd, 2024. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't tell her that I run a $4 million company she knows nothing about. Instead, I smiled, untied my apron, and booked a one-way ticket to Miami, leaving behind an empty kitchen and a Christmas dinner that would never be cooked. I'm Lily Sefton, 37 years old, and this is how I finally stopped being my family's maid. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. 15 years ago, on my first Christmas as an adult, Christmas 2009. I was 22, fresh out of college with a communications degree and no job prospects. The economy had just collapsed, and I was living in my childhood bedroom in Denver, sending out resumes that disappeared into the void. My parents' house smelled like pine needles and cinnamon that December evening. Mom had decorated every corner with garlands, candles, and those porcelain angels she collected. 15 guests were coming for Christmas dinner: aunts, uncles, cousins, and a few of Dad's business associates. "Lily, you're handling dinner," Mom announced while arranging flowers in the dining room. She didn't ask, she informed. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been drafting yet another cover letter. The whole dinner? For 15 people? Sarah has finals to study for, she can't be distracted. My sister was 18, a freshman at the University of Colorado. She was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone, definitely not studying. "I have job applications to finish," I said carefully. "There's a marketing position at..." "Job applications can wait." Mom's voice carried that familiar edge, the one that meant the conversation was over. "This is family. Family comes first." That was the first sign I was being treated differently. Sarah got exemptions, I got assignments. I spent the next 2 days in the kitchen. I roasted a 12-pound turkey, made mashed potatoes from scratch, prepared green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and 2 pies. I set the table, polished the silverware, and arranged the centerpiece. When guests arrived on Christmas Eve, I was still in the kitchen, wearing an apron stained with gravy. Dad stood in the living room with a glass of scotch, introducing Sarah to his business partner, Harold Thompson. "This is my youngest, Sarah. She's studying marketing at CU, going to take over the company someday." Harold shook Sarah's hand warmly. "Following in your father's footsteps. That's wonderful." I walked past them carrying a platter of appetizers. Dad glanced at me, then turned back to Harold without a word. That was the second sign. Sarah was introduced as the future. I was invisible. "Who made these?" Harold's wife, a woman named Grace, picked up a stuffed mushroom. "These are incredible." "That's just Lily," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "She has time for cooking, no job yet." Grace gave me a sympathetic look, but I was already retreating to the kitchen. The pattern repeated every holiday after that. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, my parents' anniversary dinners, birthdays. I was always in the kitchen or setting up or cleaning afterward. Sarah was always at the table, charming guests, being showcased. By 2012, I'd started my own event planning business. I called it Stellar Events. I was good at coordinating logistics, managing vendors, creating experiences. I'd learned those skills in my parents' kitchen, ironically enough. But when I mentioned it to Mom, she barely looked up from her magazine. "Event planning? Like birthday parties for children?" "Corporate events, actually. Product launches, galas, conferences." "That's nice, dear. Can you pick up dry cleaning on your way home?" She never asked about it again. Neither did Dad. Neither did Sarah. So I stopped talking about it. For 12 years, I built Stellar Events in silence. I landed my first major client in 2014, a tech startup that paid me $8,000 to organize their launch party. By 2018, I had 5 employees and an office in downtown Denver. By 2022, I was managing events for Fortune 500 companies. But when I visited my parents, I still wore jeans and a plain sweater. I drove my old Honda instead of my new Audi. I never mentioned the 23 employees on my payroll or the $4.2 million in revenue we generated in 2024. Why? Because they never asked. And I was tired of offering information that would be dismissed. Last Thanksgiving, November 2024, was particularly humiliating. I'd just closed a deal with a major hotel chain worth $600,000. I was exhausted, but satisfied, flying high on professional success. Then I walked into my parents' house and Mom handed me an apron. Turkey needs basting every 30 minutes. I made a schedule. 23 employees reported to me. I negotiated contracts with CEOs. I'd been profiled in 3 industry publications, and my mother handed me a basting schedule. I took the apron. I basted the turkey. I served dinner to 18 people while Sarah talked about her stressful job as marketing director at Dad's company, a position she'd been handed, not earned. "Sarah's doing incredible work," Dad said proudly. "Revenue is up 12% this year." I could have mentioned that my company's revenue was up 31%. But what was the point? They'd find a way to minimize it. They always did. After dinner, while I was elbow-deep in dishwater, I made a decision. This would be my last holiday as the family servant. I didn't know yet how I'd break the cycle. I just knew I couldn't do this anymore. 15 years of being overlooked was enough. I dried my hands, hung up the apron, and drove home to my apartment, the one my family had never visited because they'd never asked to see it. 2 weeks later, on December 22nd, my phone buzzed with a notification that would change everything. It was an email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, December 22nd, 2024, 9:47 a.m. I sat in my corner office at Stellar Events, watching snow drift past the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Denver skyline glittered in the winter sun, and my desk was covered with vendor contracts, seating charts, and a half-finished cup of coffee. Marcus Rivera, my CFO and closest friend, knocked on the glass door. He was 51, silver-haired, and had the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every crisis and survived them all. He'd mentored me since 2015, when Stellar was just me and a laptop. "You need to see this," he said, sliding his tablet across my desk. I looked at the screen. An email from Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, a hospitality and real estate conglomerate worth $3.8 billion. Subject: Partnership Proposal, Exclusive Event Services, 2025. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Meridian Holdings wanted to sign an exclusive contract with Stellar Events. All their corporate functions, client dinners, product launches, and investor galas for the entire year. They'd reviewed our portfolio, spoken to our references, and conducted due diligence. The proposed contract value, $2.1 million. "This is real?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. Marcus nodded. "I called their legal team to confirm. It's real, but there's a catch." There was always a catch. "Victoria Caldwell wants to meet you in person before signing. She doesn't do business with people she hasn't looked in the eye." Marcus paused. "The meeting is scheduled for December 24th, 11 a.m., at their headquarters in Miami." December 24th, Christmas Eve. "Can we reschedule?" I asked. "Victoria is leaving for Switzerland on the 26th. She won't be back until mid-January." Marcus leaned forward. "Lily, if we don't sign by December 24th, they're moving to their second choice. Lux Affairs has been pitching them for months." Lux Affairs, my biggest competitor. They'd been trying to poach my clients all year. I understood the stakes now. This wasn't just a contract, this was a statement. Meridian Holdings was the kind of client that opened doors. Their endorsement would mean referrals to their partners, their investors, their entire network. It would mean expansion into the Florida market. It would mean Stellar Events becoming a national name instead of a regional one. And if I lost this to Lux Affairs, the industry would notice. Clients would wonder why Meridian passed on us. Momentum would shift. The reputation I'd spent 12 years building could start eroding. There's something else, Marcus said. He pulled up another email on the tablet. Victoria mentioned your Forbes feature. I scrolled down. There it was, a line that made my breath catch. I was impressed by your profile in Forbes's 30 Under 40 Event Entrepreneurs list. Your approach to sustainable event design aligns with Meridian's values. I look forward to meeting the woman behind Stellar Events. The Forbes article had come out in October. I'd been interviewed for 2 hours, photographed in my office, quoted extensively about innovation in the event industry. The piece called me a quiet force reshaping corporate gatherings. I'd never shown it to my family. What would be the point? Mom would find something to criticize. Dad would compare my revenue to his. Sarah would roll her eyes. But Victoria Caldwell had read it. Victoria Caldwell was impressed. Book my flight, I said. Marcus was already typing. Done. You leave tomorrow night, December 23rd, 8:45 p.m. Arriving Miami 1:30 a.m. Hotel reservation at the Fontainebleau. Meeting at 11 a.m. sharp. I nodded, feeling the familiar mix of excitement and anxiety that came before every big deal. But this time, something else churned beneath the surface. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Call me. Important. I stared at those 3 words. In my experience, important from my mother meant one of 2 things. Someone was sick, or she needed something from me. Given that I hadn't heard about any illness, option 2 seemed likely. I should have ignored it. I should have focused on the biggest opportunity of my career. But 15 years of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. The daughter in me, the one who still craved approval, who still hoped that this time would be different, that daughter picked up the phone. I pressed call. Mom answered on the first ring. Finally, she said. I've been trying to reach you all morning. It was 10:15 a.m. She'd sent one text. What's going on? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Christmas plans have changed. Sarah's friends are joining us this year, 25 people total. 25 people. A number that would have excited me professionally, a number that terrified me personally. That's a lot, I said carefully. Which is why I need you here early tomorrow. Cooking, decorating, the works. Sarah's too busy with work. And there it was. I gripped my phone tighter. Through the glass wall of my office, I could see Marcus watching me with concern. Mom, I can't. I have a business trip. A business trip? On Christmas? It's important. I'm flying to Miami tomorrow night. She laughed. Actually laughed. Miami? For what? Some little party you're organizing? Some little party. $2.1 million. The biggest contract of my career. It's a significant client meeting. Lily, please. We both know your freelance work can wait. This is family. There it was again. Family. The word she weaponized whenever she wanted something. I can't cancel this trip. Can't or won't? My jaw tightened. Both. Silence on the line. I heard her sharp intake of breath, the precursor to the guilt trip I knew was coming. Do you know how hard I've worked to make this Christmas special? Sarah has been under so much pressure at work. She needs this celebration, and her friends are very important people, colleagues, potential clients for your father's business. This isn't just a dinner party. This is networking. Networking. For Sarah. For Dad's business. Never for me. Mom, I understand, but you're being selfish. Her voice turned cold. You always have been. Sarah gives and gives to this family, and you can't even cook one meal? I closed my eyes. 15 years of these conversations. 15 years of being told I was selfish for having boundaries, selfish for having a life, selfish for existing outside their narrow expectations. My answer is no. What did you just say? I said no. I won't be there tomorrow. I won't be cooking dinner for 25 people. I have a meeting that cannot be rescheduled. Mom's voice dropped to a hiss. What meeting could possibly be more important than your family? A contract worth over $2 million. The line went silent. For a moment, just a moment, I thought maybe she'd heard me. Maybe she'd finally understand. Then she laughed again. Dismissive, cruel. $2 million? Lily, honestly, where do you come up with these fantasies? You plan little corporate parties. You're not some big business mogul. Something cracked inside me. Not broke. Cracked. A fissure that had been forming for 15 years finally split open. You don't know anything about what I do. I know enough. I know you're 37, unmarried, with no real career. I know you've wasted years on this hobby while your sister built an actual future. And I know that when family needs you, you're never there. Each word landed like a slap, calculated, precise, designed to wound. Marcus stood up from his desk, watching me through the glass. He'd heard enough of these calls over the years to recognize the pattern. I'm going to Miami, I said quietly. You can figure out the dinner without me. If you walk out on this family, don't bother coming back. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. For a long moment, I just sat there, phone in hand, staring at the Denver skyline. My heart was racing, but my mind was strangely calm. Marcus appeared in my doorway. You okay? She wanted me to cancel Miami, to cook dinner for 25 people on Christmas Eve. He shook his head slowly. And when you said no? She told me not to bother coming back. Marcus walked over and sat in the chair across from my desk. He'd been with me since the early days, when Stellar was a dream in a spreadsheet. He'd watched me build something real while my family dismissed it as a hobby. Lily, I've known you for 9 years. I've seen you negotiate million-dollar contracts. I've seen you manage crises that would break most people. You are one of the most capable executives I've ever worked with. He paused. But when it comes to your family, you become someone else, someone smaller. I looked away. He wasn't wrong. This is the moment, he said. You can keep shrinking yourself to fit into their expectations, or you can choose your own path, but you can't do both. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Mom's crying. Thanks a lot. You really couldn't put family first for one day? So selfish. I typed back. I have work commitments. Her response came instantly. Work? What work? You plan birthday parties, get over yourself. I could have replied. I could have explained. I could have defended myself. Instead, I deleted the text thread. Book the flight, I told Marcus. I'm going to Miami. He nodded, already heading for the door. Then he paused. Lily? You're making the right call, for what it's worth. It was worth a lot. That night, I went home to my apartment, the 2-bedroom loft in Low-High that cost $3,000 a month, with exposed brick walls and a view of the mountains. The apartment my family had never seen because they'd never asked. I packed a carry-on, professional clothes for the meeting, comfortable clothes for the plane, my laptop, contracts, presentation materials. And one more thing, the October issue of Forbes with my face on page 47. I didn't know why I packed it. Maybe as proof, maybe as armor, maybe just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that I had built something real. At 8:45 p.m. on December 23rd, my plane lifted off from Denver International Airport, climbing through snow clouds toward Miami. Below me, my family was probably sitting in the living room, furious at my absence. Let them be furious, I had a contract to sign. The flight from Denver to Miami takes about 4 hours. I spent most of it reviewing the Meridian contract, making notes in the margins, preparing for every possible question Victoria Caldwell might ask. But around midnight, somewhere over Texas, I pulled out the Forbes magazine. The cover featured a tech CEO I didn't recognize. But on page 47, there I was. A full-page photo of me standing in my office, arms crossed, the Denver skyline behind me. Lily Sefton, The quiet force behind stellar events. I read the opening paragraph for the 20th time. In an industry dominated by loud personalities and flashy self-promotion, Lily Sefton has built a $4 million event empire through meticulous attention to detail and an almost preternatural ability to anticipate client needs. I don't believe in showing off, Sefton says from her corner office in downtown Denver. I believe in showing up. The article detailed our growth trajectory, our client retention rate of 93%, our expansion into sustainable event practices. It quoted 3 CEOs who called me indispensable and the best in the business. And my family had no idea it existed. I'd considered showing them for about 5 minutes. Then I imagined Mom's response, probably something about how the photo made me look tired, or how I should have worn more makeup, or how Sarah's friend had also been in a magazine once, and it wasn't that big a deal. So I kept it to myself. I tucked the magazine back into my bag as the plane began its descent. The lights of Miami sprawled below like scattered diamonds, and I felt that familiar pre-meeting adrenaline kick in. My phone buzzed as we taxied to the gate. A new email from Victoria Caldwell, sent at 11:47 p.m. Subject: Contract Namjar MH 2024-1223, Final Signing. Dear Ms. Sefton, just confirming our meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please bring 2 forms of identification for notarization. Our legal team will have the final contract ready for signatures. I've attached our standard NDA and preliminary terms. If you have any questions, my assistant can be reached at the number below. I look forward to meeting the woman behind stellar events. Best regards, Victoria Caldwell, CEO, Meridian Holdings. I saved the email. Then I took a screenshot and saved that too. Proof. Documentation. The habits of someone who'd learned that words mean nothing without evidence. The Fontainebleau was everything I expected. Art Deco elegance, ocean views, a lobby that whispered money. I checked in at 2 a.m., collapsed into a king-sized bed and slept for 6 hours. When I woke on December 24th, I had 11 new text messages, 4 from Mom, 3 from Sarah, 2 from Dad, 2 from unknown numbers that were probably relatives I didn't want to talk to. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I showered, dressed in my best charcoal suit, and reviewed my notes one more time. At 10:30 a.m., I took an Uber to Meridian Holdings headquarters, a glass tower in Brickell that reflected the December sun like a beacon. The receptionist checked my ID and handed me a visitor badge. Ms. Caldwell is expecting you, 40th floor. The elevator ride felt endless. My heart beat against my ribs. This was it, the meeting that could change everything. But as the elevator climbed, my phone buzzed again. This time, a call from Sarah. I declined it. Another buzz, a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I listened. Lily, it's Sarah. Mom is having a meltdown. None of the caterers will come on Christmas Eve. Surprise, surprise. Dad's calling in favors, but no one can help. Victoria Caldwell is supposed to be at our dinner tonight, and we have nothing to serve. This is your fault. If you had just... I stopped the voicemail. Replayed one sentence. Victoria Caldwell is supposed to be at our dinner tonight. I stared at my phone as the elevator dinged. Victoria Caldwell, CEO of Meridian Holdings, the woman I was about to meet, was going to my parents' house for Christmas dinner. How was that possible? The elevator doors opened onto a marble foyer. A woman in a navy dress approached with a professional smile. Ms. Sefton, Miss Caldwell is ready for you, right this way. I followed her down a corridor lined with awards and photographs. My mind was spinning. Victoria Caldwell knew my parents, or at least she'd been invited to their dinner, which meant she knew Sarah, or Dad. Someone had connected them, probably through business circles. Denver wasn't that big in certain industries. Did Victoria know I was Richard Sefton's daughter? Did she know that the family she was visiting tonight was the same family I just walked away from? The assistant opened a door to a corner conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Biscayne Bay. A long table dominated the space, legal documents spread across its surface. And at the head of the table stood Victoria Caldwell. She was in her early 50s, silver-haired, with the sharp eyes of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. She wore a cream blazer and pearl earrings. Her handshake was firm. "Ms. Sefton, it's a pleasure to finally meet you." "The pleasure is mine, Ms. Caldwell." She gestured to a chair. "Shall we get started? I have a flight to Denver this afternoon." Denver. My stomach tightened. I sat down, opened my folder, and prepared to sign the most important contract of my career. While trying not to think about what would happen when Victoria Caldwell arrived at my parents' house tonight, before I tell you what happened next, I want to pause and ask you something. Have you ever been overlooked by your own family? Have they ever dismissed your success, ignored your achievements, made you feel invisible? If yes, type 1 in the comments. If you've ever stood up for yourself and set boundaries, type 2. And please, if you want to see what happened when Victoria Caldwell walked into my parents' house, hit that like button and subscribe. Now, back to the story. The contract signing took 45 minutes. Victoria Caldwell was thorough. She reviewed every clause, asked pointed questions about our capacity, our vendor relationships, our contingency protocols. I answered each one with the confidence of someone who'd spent 12 years preparing for this moment. At 11:52 a.m., we both signed contract number MH 2024-1223. A photographer captured the moment. Victoria and me shaking hands, the Miami skyline glittering behind us. Her assistant notarized the documents and presented me with my copy in a leather folder embossed with the Meridian Holdings logo. "Welcome to the Meridian family," Victoria said, smiling warmly. "I have a feeling this is going to be an exceptional partnership." I couldn't agree more. We exchanged a few more pleasantries, and then her assistant appeared with a gentle reminder about her flight. "I'm spending Christmas Eve with some business associates in Denver," Victoria mentioned as she gathered her things. "The Seftons, do you know them? Richard runs a construction supply company. His daughter Sarah is quite impressive." My throat tightened. "I've heard of them. Richard is a potential investor for a project we're developing. His wife invited me to their Christmas dinner." She laughed lightly. "Normally I'd decline, but I'm curious about their operation. And I'm told the food is spectacular." The food. The food I was supposed to have cooked. I managed to keep my expression neutral. "I hope you enjoy yourself." Victoria paused at the door, studying me with those sharp eyes. "You know, there's something familiar about you, Ms. Sefton. The name, perhaps? Any relation to the Denver Seftons?" This was the moment. I could have told her. I could have explained that Richard and Margaret were my parents, that Sarah was my sister, that I'd spent 15 years being their unpaid caterer while building the company she'd just invested $2.1 million in, but I didn't. "It's a common name," I said instead. Victoria nodded, seemingly satisfied, and left. I sat in the empty conference room for a long time after she was gone, the signed contract heavy in my hands. She didn't know. She had no idea that the spectacular food at the Sefton Christmas dinner was supposed to have been prepared by me, the woman she'd just signed a major contract with. She didn't know that the family she was about to visit had spent years dismissing my work as a hobby, my career as a joke. And tonight, when she arrived at my parents' house and found no dinner prepared, no caterer hired, no magical spread appearing out of nowhere, what would happen then? A dark part of me wanted to see it, wanted to watch my mother scramble, my father make excuses, my sister's carefully constructed image crumble. But a larger part of me felt something unexpected. Exhaustion. I was tired of the drama, tired of being pulled into their orbit, tired of defining my worth by their reactions. I had what I came for. The contract was signed. My company's future was secured. Whatever happened in Denver tonight was no longer my problem. I flew back that afternoon, landing in Denver at 6:47 p.m., exactly the time the Sefton Christmas dinner was supposed to begin. I took an Uber from the airport to my apartment, ordered Thai food, and turned off my phone. For the first time in 15 years, I spent Christmas Eve alone, and it was peaceful. I didn't know yet what was happening at my parents' house. I wouldn't find out until the next morning. But I can tell you now, because I pieced it together later from accounts by Grace Thompson and two other guests who were there. At 5:30 p.m., Margaret Sefton walked into her kitchen expecting to find the usual: trays of appetizers, a roasting turkey, pots simmering on every burner. Instead, she found nothing. Cold appliances, empty counters, no Lily. "Richard!" Her voice echoed through the house. "Richard!" My father appeared, adjusting his tie. "What's wrong? Where's the food? Where's Lily? I thought you said she was handling it." "She was. She was supposed to be here hours ago." Sarah descended the stairs, dressed in a red cocktail dress. "What's going on? Why are you yelling?" "Your sister abandoned us. There's no dinner." The next hour was chaos. Phone calls to every catering company in Denver, all booked or closed for the holiday. A desperate run to the grocery store, only to find the prepared food section picked clean. My father called in favors with 3 restaurants, all of whom politely declined. By 6 p.m., when guests began arriving, the Sefton dining table held this: 2 store-bought rotisserie chickens, 3 bags of pre-mixed salad, a cheese platter from Costco, and dinner rolls still in their plastic packaging. Grace Thompson, the woman who'd complimented my stuffed mushrooms 15 years ago, stood in the living room surveying the scene. "Margaret, is everything all right? You seem flustered." "Everything's fine." My mother's smile was brittle. "We had a little catering snafu, last-minute changes." 25 guests mingled awkwardly. The house was beautiful, decorated to perfection, but the food told a different story. This wasn't the elegant dinner party my mother had promised. This was a disaster barely concealed by Christmas lights. At 7:15 p.m., Victoria Caldwell arrived. She swept into the living room with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Her pearl earrings caught the light as she shook hands with Richard, complimented Margaret's decorations, exchanged pleasantries with Sarah. "Thank you so much for having me," Victoria said warmly. "I've heard wonderful things about your Christmas dinners." Margaret's smile tightened. "Yes, well, this year is a bit different. We had some unexpected challenges." Victoria glanced toward the dining room, where the rotisserie chickens sat in their sad splendor. Her expression remained politely neutral, but I imagined she was silently revising her opinion of the Sefton family's competence. My father steered the conversation toward business. My mother poured wine liberally. My sister worked the room, trying to distract from the obvious. And then Grace Thompson said the words that would unravel everything. She was scrolling through her phone, LinkedIn probably, or maybe Instagram, when she stopped abruptly. "Oh my God," Grace said, loud enough for the group nearby to hear. "Richard, Margaret, come look at this." She held up her phone, showing a LinkedIn post that had been published just hours ago. A photo of Victoria Caldwell shaking hands with someone. A caption that read, "Thrilled to announce our partnership with @Stellar Events and the brilliant Lily Sefton. Looking forward to an incredible 2025. #Meridian Holdings, #Event Planning, #Forbes, under 40. Grace looked up at my parents, confusion evident on her face. "Wait, Lily Sefton? Isn't that your daughter?" The room went quiet. Not completely. There was still background chatter, Christmas music playing softly, the clink of glasses. But in the circle around Grace Thompson, silence fell like a curtain. My mother stared at the phone screen, her face draining of color. My father leaned in, squinting. "What is this? Some kind of mistake?" "That's Lily," Grace said, zooming in on the photo. "You're Lily, shaking hands with Victoria Caldwell, in what looks like a very fancy office." Victoria Caldwell herself stepped forward, peering at the post. Her expression shifted, recognition, then surprise, Then something I can only describe as delighted amusement. Lily Sefton, Victoria said slowly. Your daughter is Lily Sefton, the founder of Stellar Events? Margaret's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Yes, Lily is our daughter, but I don't understand. What is Stellar Events? Victoria laughed, a genuine, warm sound that cut through the tension. Margaret, Stellar Events is one of the most successful event planning companies in the Rocky Mountain region. I just signed a $2.1 million contract with them this morning. $2.1 million. The number hung in the air like a grenade. Richard went pale. 2 million? That's more than our company's annual profit. Your daughter has built something remarkable, Victoria continued, seemingly unaware of the devastation she was causing. I read her profile in Forbes last October. Absolutely inspiring. Her approach to sustainable event design is years ahead of the industry. Forbes? Sarah's voice cracked. Lily was in Forbes? Grace was already searching on her phone. Oh yes, here it is. October issue. Lily Sefton, the quiet force behind Stellar Events. There's a whole article. She turned the screen so everyone could see. A photo of me in my corner office, arms crossed, looking directly at the camera. Professional, confident, successful. Everything my family had convinced themselves I wasn't. More guests drifted over, drawn by the commotion. Soon a crowd had formed, passing phones back and forth, reading excerpts aloud. It says she has 23 employees. Her company did over $4 million in revenue this year. This quote is incredible. I believe in showing up, not showing off. My mother stood frozen in the center of the chaos, her carefully constructed Christmas falling apart around her. Why didn't she tell us? Margaret whispered, more to herself than anyone. Perhaps, Victoria said gently, you didn't ask. The silence that followed was devastating. Grace Thompson, the same woman who'd been coming to Sefton Christmas dinners for 15 years, spoke next. You know, Margaret, I always wondered about Lily. She was always in the kitchen, always working, and you barely mentioned her. Whenever I asked about her, you changed the subject. Other guests nodded, murmuring agreement. She seemed so capable, Grace continued. Remember those stuffed mushrooms she made years ago? Best I ever tasted. I should have known she'd do something with that talent. Richard's business partner, Harold Thompson, stepped forward. Richard, I had no idea your daughter ran a $4 million company. Why on earth didn't you tell me? We could have done business together. My father had no answer. Oh. Sarah, meanwhile, had gone from pale to red. She clutched her wine glass like a lifeline, her perfect hostess facade crumbling. She never said anything, Sarah muttered. She never told us. She just let us think she was— Let you think what? Victoria asked, one eyebrow raised. That she was unsuccessful? Unimportant? That her work didn't matter? Sarah's mouth snapped shut. Victoria Caldwell surveyed the room with the calm assessment of a CEO who had just solved a puzzle. I met Lily this morning. She was professional, prepared, and one of the most impressive young executives I've encountered. We talked for nearly an hour before signing. She paused. She never mentioned she was related to you. Another blow. Margaret's hand trembled as she set down her wine glass. She didn't tell you? That we're her family? I asked if she was related to the Denver Seftons. She said it was a common name. The implication landed hard. Lily hadn't claimed them, hadn't wanted to be associated with them, had kept her family's connection hidden, not out of shame about herself, but perhaps out of something else entirely. Oh my God, Grace breathed, realization dawning. That's why she's not here tonight. That's why there's no dinner. She was in Miami, signing this contract. While you expected her to cook for 25 people, Harold added, his tone coolly critical. Richard's face had gone from pale to purple. Now wait just a minute, this is a family matter. Is it? Victoria asked. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been treating a very successful businesswoman like household help. And when she finally had an opportunity that mattered, a contract with my company no less, you expected her to prioritize dinner rolls over her career. The silence was absolute. Somewhere in the background, Silent Night played on the sound system. Ironic. Victoria turned to my parents with a pleasant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I think I understand now why Lily didn't mention the connection. Please give her my regards when you speak to her. And do thank her for me. If she hadn't stepped away from this dinner, we might never have met today. She set down her untouched wineglass. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to Switzerland in the morning. Margaret Richard, thank you for the invitation. It was illuminating. She left without looking back. The front door clicked shut behind her, and the room erupted. Guests clustered in groups, whispering about Forbes articles and million-dollar contracts, and the daughter the Seftons never mentioned. My mother sank into a chair, her Christmas party in ruins. My father retreated to his study, slamming the door. Sarah fled upstairs, presumably to cry or rage or both. And in my apartment across town, I sat on my couch with pad thai and Netflix, blissfully unaware of the revolution happening in my parents' living room. I wouldn't learn the full story until December 26th, when Grace Thompson called me directly. "Lily," she said, "I owe you an apology. I've known your family for 15 years, and I never once asked what you actually did for a living. That was wrong of me." "It's okay, Grace. You're not the one who should be apologizing." "Maybe not. But I want you to know what Victoria said at the party about you being one of the most impressive executives she'd met. Everyone in that room heard it. Everyone knows now." She paused. "Your parents have a lot of explaining to do, and I don't think the community is going to let them forget this anytime soon." A small, petty part of me felt satisfaction. A larger part just felt tired. "Thank you for telling me, Grace." "Of course. And Lily? Congratulations on the contract. You've clearly worked very hard. You deserve every success." No one in my family had ever said those words to me. It took a near stranger to say them first. Christmas night in Miami was warm and quiet. I sat on the balcony of my hotel room at the Fontainebleau, watching the moon paint silver stripes across the Atlantic. I'd ordered room service, steak, roasted vegetables, a glass of red wine. The contract folder lay on the table beside me, its weight somehow reassuring. My phone was turned off. It had been off since I landed. 15 missed calls, 32 text messages, 6 voicemails, all from family members I had no desire to speak with. But now, with the contract signed and my future secured, I felt ready. Not ready to forgive, not ready to reconcile, just ready to be clear. I turned on my phone and watched the notifications flood in. "Mom, 6:47 p.m. Call me immediately." "Mom, 7:23 p.m. Lily, this is serious. Victoria Caldwell knows about you." "Mom, 8:15 p.m. How could you humiliate us like this in front of everyone?" "Mom, 9:02 p.m. Please call. We need to talk." "Sarah, 7:45 p.m. Are you kidding me right now?" "Sarah, 8:30 p.m. You let us look like idiots in front of 25 people." "Sarah, 10:17 p.m. Mom is having a breakdown. Are you happy?" "Dad, 9:45 p.m. Lily, we need to discuss what happened. This isn't how family should operate." I read each message without emotion. The manipulation was so obvious now. The guilt trips, the blame shifting, the complete absence of accountability. Not one message congratulated me on the contract. Not one message acknowledged that I had built something worth celebrating. Not one message apologized for years of dismissal. My phone rang. Marcus. "Hey," I answered. "Merry Christmas, Lily. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected." I took a sip of wine. "The contract is signed. Victoria was incredible." "I heard. She emailed me after the meeting, said you were even more impressive in person than on paper." He paused. "I also heard about what happened in Denver. News travels fast." Victoria's assistant sent a message to our team. Apparently, the Sefton Christmas dinner was quite the spectacle. I laughed. A real laugh, maybe the first one in days. I can only imagine. Lily, listen, you made the right call. You chose your career, your company, your future. You don't owe them anything. I know. And for the first time, I actually believed it. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began drafting an email. Not a rant, not an accusation, just a clear, professional statement, the kind I would send to a difficult client. 2. Richard Sefton, Margaret Sefton, Sarah Sefton. Subject: regarding Christmas and going forward. I typed slowly, choosing each word with care. I signed a contract with Meridian Holdings today for $2.1 million. This is why I was not at Christmas dinner. For 15 years, I have cooked and cleaned for every family gathering while my career was dismissed as a hobby. When I told Mom I had an important meeting, she laughed. When I set a boundary, I was called selfish. I am not selfish for prioritizing my work. I am not ungrateful for having standards. I am not a failure because my success doesn't fit your definition. I will not apologize for choosing myself. I am open to rebuilding our relationship, but only under certain conditions. I will no longer be treated as the family caterer. I will be respected as an equal member of this family. My career will be acknowledged, not dismissed. If these conditions are unacceptable, I understand. But I will not return to the way things were. I will reach out when I am ready to talk. Lily. I read it 3 times, revised one sentence, then hit send. For a long moment, I just sat there, watching the waves. No one replied that night. I didn't expect them to. They needed time to process, to realize that the daughter they'd overlooked had outgrown their expectations entirely. Marcus had been right. This was a turning point. But not just professionally, personally. I finished my wine as the moon rose higher over Miami Beach. Tomorrow, I would fly home. I would walk back into my office as the CEO who had just landed the biggest contract in Stellar Events history. I would build on this success, expand into new markets, hire more staff, and my family would have to decide, did they want a relationship with Lily Sefton, CEO and founder? Or did they only want the Lily who stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed in the kitchen? I already knew the answer I needed. The question was whether they were capable of giving it. I want to pause here for a moment. If this story is resonating with you, if you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or taken for granted by the people who should love you most, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And tell me in the comments, do you think I should forgive my family? Or should I keep the boundaries I've set? Now let me tell you what happened next. The fallout began on December 26th and rippled outward like a stone dropped in still water. Victoria Caldwell's LinkedIn post had been shared 2,347 times by the time I checked that morning. The comments section was filled with congratulations, industry connections reaching out, potential clients expressing interest. 3 hours after Victoria posted, Entrepreneur magazine sent an email requesting an interview about the event industry's rising stars. My inbox filled with partnership inquiries, 6 in total, from companies I'd been trying to connect with for years. The Meridian contract didn't just secure our future, it announced us to the world. But in Denver, the ripples looked very different. Grace Thompson posted on Facebook that afternoon. She didn't name names, but everyone in their social circle knew exactly who she was talking about. This Christmas, I learned an important lesson. Never underestimate the people in your own family. Sometimes the most successful person in the room is the one nobody notices. The post got 287 likes and 43 comments. Several people tagged my parents indirectly, asking pointed questions about family dynamics and supporting our children's dreams. Margaret's phone began ringing. Women from her charity committee, her book club, her garden society, all calling with thinly veiled curiosity about the Forbes situation. "I heard your daughter is quite the businesswoman," one said. "Why didn't you ever mention she was so successful?" asked another. My mother had spent years cultivating an image: devoted wife, supportive mother, pillar of the community. That image now had cracks. My father faced his own reckoning. Harold Thompson, Grace's husband and Richard's longtime business associate, called on December 27th. "Richard, I've been thinking about that expansion project we discussed. I'd like to bring in an event planning partner for the launch celebration." "Of course," my father said, likely sensing an opportunity. "Who did you have in mind?" "Lily's company, Stellar Events. I saw her Forbes profile. Very impressive." Silence. "I was hoping you could make an introduction," Harold continued. "I'll reach out to her directly, of course, but I thought family connections might help." My father, who had never once introduced me to a business contact, who had spent 15 years treating my career as invisible, was now being asked to facilitate an introduction. "I'll see what I can do," he said. But Harold didn't wait. He found my business email and sent a formal inquiry that afternoon. I responded within 2 hours with a proposal. Richard Sefton wasn't the gatekeeper anymore. Sarah's situation was more complex and more satisfying, if I'm being honest. She had spent months cultivating a relationship with Meridian Holdings, hoping to position Dad's company as a supplier for their Denver developments. She'd attended networking events, sent strategic emails, positioned herself as the family's business ambassador. None of it mattered now. On December 28th, Sarah reached out to Victoria Caldwell's office requesting a follow-up meeting about potential partnership opportunities. Victoria's assistant responded with a polite but firm message. "Ms. Caldwell's schedule is fully committed through Q1. For future inquiries, please direct your correspondence to our standard vendor application process." Translation: You're not a priority. Sarah had spent years riding the wave of parental favoritism, assuming that her position as the successful daughter was secure. Now, in the space of 72 hours, that identity had been shattered. I didn't feel joy at her pain, but I'd be lying if I said I felt sorry. As for me, the professional momentum was undeniable. By December 30th, I had confirmed 3 new client meetings for January, received 2 job offers from competing firms, both of which I declined, been contacted by a literary agent who thought my story of entrepreneurial perseverance could make a compelling memoir. Projected a 35% revenue increase for 2025 based on the Meridian contract alone. Marcus summarized it perfectly during our video call that morning. "Lily, you've been working toward this moment for 12 years. Every late night, every difficult client, every sacrifice. It led here. You deserve this." I believed him. Finally. But the most surprising development came from an unexpected source. On December 29th, a letter arrived at my apartment. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter, sent via overnight delivery. The return address was my parents' house. The handwriting was my father's. I almost didn't open it. What could he possibly say that would matter? But curiosity won. "Dear Lily, I've spent the last 4 days trying to understand how I missed what was right in front of me. You built a company, a real company, with employees and clients and revenue that exceeds my own. And I didn't know. Because I never asked. I told myself I was a good father. I told myself I supported both my daughters. But the truth is, I saw what I expected to see. I expected Sarah to succeed, so I looked for her successes. I expected you to struggle, so that's all I saw. I was wrong, deeply, terribly wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see what you've accomplished, and I am proud, belatedly, inadequately, but genuinely proud, of the woman you've become. If you're willing, I would like the chance to learn about Stellar Events, to understand your work, to know my daughter. Whatever you decide, I will respect it. Your father, Richard." I read the letter 3 times, then I set it on my kitchen counter and made coffee. I wasn't ready to respond. Not yet. A letter didn't erase 15 years, words didn't undo actions, but it was at least a start. New Year's Eve, 2024, December 31st. I stood at my apartment window, watching fireworks explode over downtown Denver. The city glittered with celebration, the last minutes of a year that had changed everything. My phone sat on the counter, silent for once. I'd set new boundaries there too, muting group chats, declining calls I wasn't ready for, responding on my own timeline rather than theirs. The letter from my father still lay where I'd left it, next to my coffee maker. I'd read it a dozen times in the past 2 days. Each time, I felt something different: anger, sadness, hope, skepticism. Finally, at 11:47 p.m., I picked up my phone and called him. He answered on the first ring. "Lily?" "Hi, Dad." A long pause. I could hear my mother in the background asking who was calling. He didn't answer her. "Thank you for calling," he said finally. "I didn't expect... I wasn't sure you would." I almost didn't. I kept my voice steady, professional. "But I've been thinking about what comes next." "So have I." "Dad, I'm willing to try. To rebuild something, but not the way things were." "I understand." "I mean it. No more being the family caterer, no more dismissing my work, no more treating me like I'm invisible while Sarah gets the spotlight." I took a breath. "If I come to family events, I come as a guest, an equal, not as staff. That's fair, more than fair. And I need you to actually ask about my life, not just assume you know. Ask about my company, my clients, my goals. Be interested." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was rougher. "I should have been doing that all along." "Yes, you should have." The silence stretched between us, filled with 15 years of things left unsaid. But for the first time, it didn't feel hostile. Just tired. "Your mother," Dad said carefully, "is struggling with this. She's not ready to admit she was wrong. Not yet." "I know." I'd received no letter from Margaret, no voicemail, just a single, brittle text. "Happy New Year. Hope you're well." Performative politeness masking resentment. "Give her time," Dad said. "I've given her 15 years. He had no response to that. "I'll come to dinner next week," I said finally. "Sunday. But I'm coming as a guest. Someone else can cook." "I'll order from that Italian place you used to like." A small thing, but a start. After we hung up, I stood at the window and watched the clock tick toward midnight. In a few minutes, it would be 2025. A new year, a new chapter. Victoria Caldwell's contract was signed. Harold Thompson's proposal was in my inbox. Entrepreneur magazine wanted an interview. My company was poised for its biggest year yet. And my family, the people who had overlooked me for so long, finally saw me. Not because I'd forced them to, not because I'd screamed or fought or demanded, but because I'd walked away, because I'd chosen myself, because I'd let success speak louder than any argument ever could. There's a quote I love. I don't remember who said it. "The best revenge is massive success." But I don't think of it as revenge anymore. Revenge implies you're still focused on the people who hurt you, still measuring your worth by their standards, still trying to prove something to them. What I did wasn't revenge. It was self-respect. The fireworks reached their crescendo at midnight. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Happy New Year, boss. 2025 is going to be incredible." I typed back, "You're right, it already is." Then I opened a new document on my laptop and started planning. Not the next client event, not the next contract negotiation. My boundaries. Written out clearly, professionally, the way I would outline any business agreement. I will attend family gatherings as a guest, not a servant. I will not accept disrespect disguised as humor. I will not apologize for prioritizing my career. I will be treated as an equal, or I will not participate. I will respond to genuine attempts at connection and ignore manipulation. My time and energy are valuable. I will spend them accordingly. Simple rules, clear expectations, the kind of boundaries I should have set 15 years ago. But here's what I've learned. It's never too late. You're never too old, too far along, too entrenched to change the pattern. The moment you decide you deserve better is the moment everything shifts. My parents are not perfect. They may never fully understand what they did wrong or how much it cost me. Sarah may never apologize. But that's not my problem anymore. My problem is building the life I want, the career I've earned, the relationships I choose. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that's my story. A 15-year journey from being the family servant to signing a $2 million contract while my family scrambled without me. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted, I want you to know that your success is waiting. It doesn't require their approval. It doesn't require their acknowledgement. It only requires you to bet on yourself. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If you've ever been overlooked by the people who should love you most, I want you to know you deserve respect. You deserve to be seen. Please subscribe to this channel and check the description for more stories about setting boundaries and finding your worth. And leave a comment telling me, have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Until next time.